Hello, everyone, and welcome to our discussion today around cybersecurity, focusing on digital risk, why there's an increase in risk, and how this can be minimised. I'm Sam Brayley, and I'll be hosting this discussion with you. So just to make things confusing, we've got another Sam here today, Sam Parmar, who's Head of Strategy and Technology at CYFIRMA. Sam is a cybersecurity and technology leader who helps organisations craft IT security governance, risk management, compliance and training strategies. And he's also spearheaded cybersecurity strategies for one of the largest mining companies in the world. So welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Sam, it'd be great if you could give us a bit of an introduction as to your experience with cybersecurity to get us started, please.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that, Sam. So my name is Sam Parmar. I've been in the cyber industry for some time now, almost 2 decades, and what a journey it's been. It's been from consulting, end user, to vendor, and from startup to large billion-dollar enterprises. I've been fortunate to be a key part of large technology and cyber transformation projects across the globe, which has given me a great insights into the trials and tribulations of building up a cyber practice and creating a solid strategy, and also fostering support from not only executives but verticals within an organization, and operationalizing the cyber controls and ensuring continuous evolution of the cyber program as the business and industry matures. And this exposure really has given me the passion to help businesses solve their cyber challenges, and as well as a term that I like to use is being brilliant at the basics when it comes to cyber controls. So now I'm the head of cyber. I'm the head of strategy and technology for CYFIRMA, who's a pioneer and leader within external threat landscape management. So really looking forward to this conversation with yourself, Sam, and Paul. Thanks.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your opinions and thoughts as we go through the conversation based on your experience. That's great. Also joining us today is Paul McAdam, Director and Co-owner of Source Code Control. Source Code Control are a global consultancy with 2 sides to the business, one being open source and the other being cloud migration, both of which have their relevance with cybersecurity. Source Code Control are also a new partner to CYFIRMA and will be leveraging their tools to perform cybersecurity assessments for other companies. Paul, please can you share with us a little bit about your journey with cybersecurity and how you and Source Code Control have ended up here today?
Hey, thanks, Sam. And I feel like the odd one out because I'm not a Sam. Maybe I could be Paul Sam McAdam or something like that. But yeah, great to be here. Thank you for the introduction. Source Code Control, we're, as you said, a boutique consultancy. We specialize in helping people to understand the costs and the risks of owning software. And of course, that leads into the world of cyber security. I'm just kind of not sure. As a business owner, I also run a charity, or I'm the chairperson of a charity in my spare time. And then also, a member of the planet Earth. And I can't quite decide if this is a really exciting time to be involved in cybersecurity or a really scary time. As a business owner and as a charity person, it's quite scary. There's a lot of things happening out there which make me really take a step back. But equally, because we are involved in this space, we get the joy of, or the excitement of seeing the evolution of what's happening and the defenses that we can spin up as well. So again, really looking forward to what I can learn from this discussion.
Absolutely. It's a great point you make there, Paul. There's certainly a huge increase in cyber threat at the moment, which leads us perfectly into the first question I had for you guys, actually. So I saw an interesting point the other day that I wanted to share with you. So businesses have stepped up their spend on cybersecurity, with Gartner recording it being over $150 billion in 2021. Yet the world of cybercrime is still thriving and the bad guys still seem to be winning. So it'd be great if you could explain to us, what is the significance of things like the dark web? Who are these cyber criminals, and why are we seeing more cybercrime committed year after year? I don't know if Sam, you wanna start off with that.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think if you look at if we categorize the internet into three sort of very distinct areas, right? You have the surface web, which could be Google, search engines, publicly accessible sites, right? You then have what's called the deep web, which is sort of the gated or authenticated surface web. And this is where, you know, you're getting a lot of reports, databases, medical records. The next step, which is what we call the dark web. And this is actually much larger than both surface and deep web combined. And this is where, you know, it was built to provide anonymity to individuals transacting on who wanted to go onto the internet. And you can obviously, you know, you can't access this through a browser that we use every day. You have to go through a very specific means. And I guess this is where you have a lot of the criminal activity that is occurring that we see today, which you know, which is sort of the persona of the dark web, where, you know, you can get anything from drugs to weapons. You know, you've got language-specific forums, you've got invite-only forums, and this is where individuals, threat actors, criminals, organized criminals are doing their discussions, planning, and transacting within the dark web. You know, but that said, the dark web does have a legal side to it, but we don't hear too much of it, purely because of the destructive nature of what we're seeing in the dark web.
I always think it's really interesting, you know, you watch the movies and you know, the bad guys are always faceless people with hoodies, right? And it's kind of like an easy problem. You just go around and, you know, you round up all the people who, you know, got the hoods up without faces, and there you've got all the, but it's not like that anymore, is it, Sam? I mean, this is like you say, organized crime. This is a business. For some people, this is how they make the money. This is how they make the living. I was reading the other day that you can rent an attacker for $250 for a job, which is just like, you know, mind-blowing that actually, you know, some people are getting their way through university, so they've got like a normal life, and then they've got this other life where they're actually funding their lifestyles through attacking businesses, and it's very, very commercial, and almost reached the point now where it's a commodity, and a very accessible commodity for lots of people. And you know, if I think back to my role as business owner and a charity person, that's scary, because there are people who are out there making money, making a living from something that really shouldn't be glamorized by the movie and industry and by TV. This is illegal activity in a very, very organized way. And it, you know, that's where I see, you know, from a social perspective, a lot of things happening that actually we need to be more aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you know, there is the concept of ransomware as a service now, right? So a technical or even a non-technical person, if they want to do any harm to an organization, they can really request for a ransomware package that is a ransomware package to use against an organization, right? This could be a disgruntled individual. It could be it could be even be a competitor, or it could just be someone who wants to get some financial gain. And not only is this type of service available, they actually get 24/7 service from the cyber criminals. So if they've got a problem, they can call a number and get support 24/7. Right? This is where we're going to, and this is where we are at the moment. And it's even more, you know, this is probably the reason why one of the main reasons why we're having this discussion is that the threat actor, the sophistication, the velocity, and the type of threat actor is on the increase. And, you know, as a business owner, both enterprise and small business owner, there are certain things that need to be thought of. Otherwise, you know, they could be some business disruptions due to cyber criminal or any cyber incidents directed to those organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting, especially as the years have gone on. We have seen, as you kind of touched on, both of you, the risk has evolved in so many ways that we're not just getting it from one angle anymore. It's coming in from all sorts of angles. So looking at digital risk then, it'd be great if maybe we could hear your definition of what do you think digital risk is, and explain why this is now a key issue amongst businesses.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, digital risk is just a business risk that originates in the digital world. I've got a friend who works in the accountancy department of a sort of small, medium-sized company, and they were attacked, and they held effectively their ERP system. So they got access to the ERP system, locked it up, made it inaccessible, were able to remove the backups, then got in touch with the company. They were looking for $40,000 in order to provide a restore, and of course, kind of don't really have any confidence necessarily that that's going to be the end of it. So the company's in a horrible position at that point. So this is very much a business risk. It just happens to have started in the digital world, and so I think I tend to look at it that way. You can compromise your company security by leaving a fire door open. Let's face it. And it's just the digital equivalence of that, which can put you in severe jeopardy as a small medium organization. Sam?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. I totally agree with you there. And look, cyber today, decades ago was never a business problem. It was always an IT problem. And this is one of the biggest challenges, I guess, as any cyber professional, is to marry the digital risk with business risk, because it is happening. And I'll just explain a little bit about that, because if you look at where we've just come from in terms of the pandemic, a lot of organizations, both small to medium businesses and enterprise, have really expedited their journey in terms of technology advancements, right? What used to take months and years has now taken days and months, which is fantastic, which is great, However, cybersecurity probably wasn't even thought of, which means that you have a very porous cyber posture. On top of that, not only does your organization gone through this journey, but your third parties, your supply chain, your fourth parties, right? So you now have this, this playground of sort of substandard cyber hygiene across a number of these businesses that have adopted technology, which is giving a lot of opportunity for easy targets to cyber criminals and threat actors. So I would say the definition that I would use is it's the potential disruption of it's the disruption, the loss of revenue, damage to reputation, legal ramifications due to a cyber breach or an incident or an exploit. So it's an inherent exposure of the company once they have sort of digitized their business. And as they start to expand into the cloud, different ways of working, integrations, digitalization of the supply chain, that risk will start to increase and will be present. So it's not a one-time thing. It is something that has to be addressed as a business risk.
Absolutely. And so how do you think businesses are coping with this escalated digital risk?
Look, with rapid digitalization, I don't think they are doing too well at the moment because, look, visibility is always key, right? So visibility into their cyber posture, visibility on the right controls that they need to deploy, visibility in how they prioritize their cyber program, visibility into what is happening into their third parties, visibility also into what is also going on in terms of threat actors. Who are those threat actors that are after them? What are they after? Why are they after them? So I think a lot of organizations are dealing with digital risk in a reactive way. And that reactive way is something's already happened. And this is where, you're getting this constant sort of discussion point with CISOs to say, look, I've got too much data coming at me. I've got all the controls in place within the perimeter. I've got application controls, but network controls. I'm doing all the security awareness, but I keep on getting breached. So they need a different way of looking at how to complement, or it's a mindset shift in terms of how to look at cyber posture and looking at cyber intelligence.
Yeah, Sam, we do a lot of work in the Caribbean, and I'm always really impressed by the level of awareness. It's really front of mind for the companies in the Caribbean. They need to think about cybersecurity. They need to consider it every step and every project that they do. But what's interesting is matching that against the skills and the action. So clearly the government and the industry forums, et cetera, have done a brilliant job there in terms of raising awareness, but actually, being able to then do something with it is where, it's a little bit lacking. And, that's not constrained to the Caribbean. It's just like really nicely demonstrated in that part of the world because of the kind of slight imbalance. I don't think there's any magic bullet. I think, whenever I get a problem like this, I always try and think through who, why, what, where, when, how, and try and think what I would do differently. I think some of the answers lie in people need to get smarter. And some of that is training, obviously, but some of that as well is in having better tools, better access to information so you know what's happening from the outside in. A lot of companies focus on the internal infrastructure. We need to think about things from the hacker's perspective or the activist perspective. That requires some investment. So it's, again, it comes back to this. It's great to be aware of it, but actually companies need to invest and actually make those tools available to their people to be able to take the actions. I think people need to get faster as well. Again, it's great understanding, what ports and certificates and you need to fix those things, right? You need to take action like quickly because things can move very, very rapidly. We see scenarios of hacks where the hackers have been in, they've been active within the account for 4 or 5 months before they actually, make the move that makes this this issue very visible. I think 2 last things, if I can. One is just to practice. So if you go out and educate the users on things like phishing attacks, you need to practice those things and make sure that you're kind of raising awareness. No point waiting until it actually happens for real and you're in big problems before you make all of your users aware of how to react to those things and what to do. And then that kind of leads me to my last point, which is like educate everybody. Again, kind of goes back to my previous point. This is a business risk. It's not just the CISO's problem. It's not just, everybody needs to understand that we live in the digital world. If you want to live in the digital world, then, you need to be aware of what's happening and how you can counteract some of these problems and take action as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both the points you've made there are really interesting. So Sam, you mentioning how customers work on more of a reactive perspective, and Paul, you're saying about financial availability. Sometimes when you do speak to customers, that they know they need a cybersecurity tool or sort of assessment to be done to assess their risk. But they don't necessarily want to invest in that. And then you speak to them 6 months later and they've just had a cybersecurity attack, and all of a sudden they've got all the budget in the world for a cybersecurity type of tool. So yeah, I think it's a great point you make there. And Sam, you mentioned earlier a little bit about ransomware as a service. So I think it'd be great to talk a little bit more about ransomware. According to the latest global risk reports in 2022, released by the World Economic Forum, ransomware attacks have increased by 435% in 2020. And those numbers haven't been released yet for 2021, but we're expecting that to increase substantially. So you're able to share maybe some insights as to why you think this is happening? Why is there such an increase?
Well, it goes back to my point earlier about this becoming, a commodity and becoming available. I read a great report the other day that literally had, my eyebrows were up here somewhere. It's like stolen passwords. You can get 100, what was that? 40 million stolen passwords for $150. That's like, wow. That was mind blowing. Spear phishing attacks. It's like $1,000 to have a successful account takeover within a, and there's like a scale. So, if it's a premium company, you pay more. If it's a smaller company, you pay less. Clearly, this is available. There's good money in it. It happens to be incredibly illegal. So anybody that's watching this is not a career choice that you want to be thinking about. but it's that availability that I think is kind of promoting and making making it available to more people. It's a choice, right? Sam, you've probably got much better perspective than I do, but I'm scared.
Yes, and so am I. You know, it all goes back down to it all goes back to how lucrative this is for the cyber criminals and anyone who is getting involved in that ransomware sort of business, criminal business. And we make it easy for them. That's the problem, right? And it's you know, you made the point of Paul, you know, the people side of things, but there's also the technology side of things. There's also the process side of things that and culture that organizations need to ensure that they have a defense in depth approach when they're looking at cyber controls and cyber protection. What we're finding is that a lot of organizations will think that they've put something in place and that will be the silver bullet. And you know, they don't look at continuous monitoring. They don't look at what is happening in the outside world. They don't have a look at, you know, what is happening in their industry, geography, or tech stack, or even cyber criminals that could be interested in them. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And then, you know, benchmark that with what their existing controls are, and, you know, try to figure out what type of any gaps or any remediation steps they need to put into it. So we make it very easy for these cyber criminals. And, you know, a lot of our growth that is happening now is leveraging technology. And if your technology is not, you know, we've got this term called secure by design. If you don't have that embedded into what you are doing from a technology perspective, from a digital perspective, we are going to continue to see ransomware as a service, just ransomware in general on the increase. And I will not be surprised if that number is doubled by next year, in all honesty, because, you know, threat actors now are not only setting themselves or setting their costs, so setting their eyes just for enterprise, but they're also now going after SMBs. Why? Because they're going for the path of the least resistance, and they know that SMBs cannot afford the controls that enterprise can deploy, and they know that they can't afford having downtime for, you know, X number of days, because that is their business. So they will pay the ransom. So it's very, very imperative for organizations to, you know, start to take this seriously. Look at, you know, what is their cyber posture look like, and you know, really focus on their from a risk-based approach, their crown jewels, and you know, visibility of their environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. CISOs and security teams across all organizations seem to be facing this issue of increased threats. And the investment on tools and controls don't seem to be giving enough protection. From your experience, what do you think defenders are necessarily doing wrong, and what could they be doing better?
I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I think it's a mindset shift. They need to go from a reactive model to a predictive model, right? From a very manual process to an automated and orchestrated with minimal business impact. So yes, they do need things like, you know, your detect controls, your protect controls, but you also need to know yourself, and you need to know your enemy. And, you know, Paul touched on the point of this outside in approach, right? Understanding what are the inroads into your organization from a cyber defender's perspective. What are those exposures, those critical vulnerabilities that could be getting exploited by or being discussed by cyber criminals, and basically being able to do something about it. And, you know, Paul also mentioned about the credentials. You know, if you look at some stats, 68% of employees of a survey conducted over 1,000 companies have admitted using the same username and password, corporate username and password, for their personal applications, right? Which is great, because you only have to remember one username and password. But as an organization, as a business owner, if there has been a breach of an application, you now have, you know, your keys to the castle, username and password, being transacted on the dark web, right? As a business owner, I would be very, very scared about that. So you need to be able to have that level of visibility into the dark web to see what is being transacted, and being able to respond to that. And I guess, you know, one of the other sort of challenges a lot of organizations will have is also budget. What do they need to focus on? What do they need to prioritize on? And how do they effectively get that support or sponsorship from senior executives? That is another big challenge that a lot of organizations have. So yeah, I think it's more of a mindset shift, Sam, from a sort of reactive sort of approach to more of a proactive and predictive approach. And I think that's what needs to happen. Paul, over to you.
I would just echo all of that. You know, an organization only has so much energy to spend, right? And you know, if you think about, say, a charity, so it's the number one sector which is hacked in the UK. They've only got so much energy, and of course, they're trying to spend as much of that energy as possible on good causes, doing the right things, etc. And it's really that mindset shift that you talked about, Sam. It's like taking some of that energy and saying, like, actually, we have this risk that we need to address from an outside-in perspective. We need to spend some time on it. We need to spend some money on it. And we need to get that as focused as possible. So, you know, products like Detect are really going to help us identify where our weak points are, what we can do. It's going to give us that to-do list to be able to figure out, you know, where we spend that time and energy to look after ourselves as best we can. So unfortunately, it really is as simple as that. It's about shifting energy from other things a little bit, start with a little bit, you know, respond as necessary, but shift some energy from other things across to looking after your business.
But where do you see the threat landscape in the next 1 or 2 years? And what is the one thing that you think defenders should be prepared for?
So from my perspective, I'm going to give you the kind of layman's view, and then Sam can tell me how close I am. But I'm thinking bigger, faster, more of the same, and I'm a little bit scared about AI. Is there something that could happen in there to make it kind of smarter than the human beings? So those are my key ones. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. There's going to be another one, which I think I would like to add, Paul, which is collaboration. We're going to see a lot more threat actors collaborating. They're doing it as of today, and they are using the same technologies or similar technologies that businesses use to get, you know, that business productivity, to get those insights, to get that predictivity, to get that automation against us, right? Whether it's AI, whether it's ML, and they've got resources. I mean, if you look at nation states, you know, they have one job to do, and that is to penetrate into the defenses of an organization, whether it's to get IP, whether it's to bring disruption, where the organization where they're trying to get that from have 100 other things to do in terms of businesses, right? So I think you're right that digital rush will remain to be a problem, and it will leave organizations exposed if they don't have you know, this sort of secure by design and have this visibility of what is happening out there. And I think misconfiguration of devices and applications, that is also going to be a big key issue that we're going to see, because, you know, as organizations do start to digitize, you're bringing more systems onto the into the environment. More systems means more configuration, more patching, more vulnerabilities. So I think we're going to see a huge number there. And not to mention IoT. IoT is going to be another big concern. You know, there's going to be everything from you know, if you look at a stat, they were saying so for every one person, they will have 10 devices that will be connecting into the internet or have an IP address, right? Which is a staggering number. So that could be anything from your watch, your smartwatch, all the way up to, you know, the device that we're talking on today. Which means that your attack surface has expanded considerably. And I think that number 10 is actually, I think I've got more devices than that today. So I think that is going to expand quite considerably. So that's going to be another issue. And when we start moving into autonomy, whether it's autonomous cars, autonomous houses, even smart cities, you know, this is going to be, we're now moving from a digital world now crossing over into a physical world where now there could be human life being impacted.
Yeah, very interesting point, Sam. It's definitely quite an unnerving time, really, going from a physical to a digital world. So it's certainly something it's all worth everyone looking out for. But thank you both for your time, Sam, Paul. It's been really interesting to hear your thoughts and opinions today. Before we do close, though, do you have any final remarks or words of advice just to summarise on that you'd like to share?
Nice and simple. Just think about that time and energy, and please do think about spending some of that energy in terms of protecting yourself, thinking about your security posture and putting in place protections, because, you know, from firsthand experience, I've seen it just a little bit too often. And I don't want that to happen to any of our friends that we have here on the internet. Sam?
Yeah, brilliant. I would add one more to that, which is visibility. Try to get the best visibility across not only your external threat landscape, but also internally, and also visibility into how effective your controls, your processes are that you have deployed from a cyber perspective. And understand, you know, what are the crown jewels that you are really trying to protect within your organization.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both again. And to those that have tuned in with us, thank you for listening. We hope you found the discussion insightful. If you do have any questions for us, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn and ask us any questions. Thank you.